They said the city ran on fear, blood, and money. But that night, it ran on silence. The rain hit the harbor like broken glass, and somewhere between the sound of waves and sirens, 2 gunshots cracked through the dark, signaling the end of another deal gone wrong. By dawn, the papers would blame the Moretti family. The Giordanos would retaliate before breakfast. And the fragile truce that kept the city from burning would tremble. Amid that chaos, she walked out of the shadows, black coat soaked, heels clicking against the dock. Everyone in the underworld knew her by reputation alone. Isabella Moretti ***, daughter of Don Moretti, the man who owned half the waterfront and all of its secrets. Tonight, she wasn't supposed to be here. Tonight, she was supposed to be safe behind the mansion walls. Instead, she was staring at the man everyone had sworn she must never speak to. Luca Giordano ***, the rival heir, the man her father once swore to kill. His gun was still smoking, jaw set, eyes unreadable. The stormlight caught the scar on his cheek, a mark from a fight neither of them were supposed to remember. "Wrong place to take a walk," he said, voice low, dangerous. Isabella's chin lifted. "Then why are you here?" "For the same reason you are," he replied, "cleaning up someone else's mess." They shouldn't have shared a single word. But something in that silence, the brief flicker of recognition, the defiance in her gaze, broke rules older than both their families. By daylight, the city glittered as if it didn't bleed every night. Isabella sat at the long marble table of the Moretti estate, pretending to read the morning briefing. Her father paced at the head of the table, barking orders at his lieutenants. "The Giordanos crossed the line again," he growled. "An attack on our shipment means war." War, the word hung heavy. Isabella's hand tightened on her coffee cup. She knew the truth. Luca hadn't pulled that trigger out of malice. He'd done it to stop a rogue from his own crew, a man ready to fire on Moretti men. He prevented a massacre. But she couldn't say that. No one could ever know she'd seen him. Across the table, her brother Marco caught her staring into space. "You okay, Bella?" She blinked. "Fine, just tired." "Tired of being locked up," he teased. Her smile was thin. "Maybe." Marco meant well, but he was his father's son, hot-headed, loyal, and convinced peace was weakness. He'd never understand what it felt like to doubt the blood you were born into. That evening, Isabella escaped to the old church on the hill, a crumbling relic that overlooked both territories. It was neutral ground. No one dared spill blood there. The candles flickered in the damp air as she knelt, whispering prayers. She wasn't sure she believed anymore. "Didn't peg you for the religious type," a voice murmured behind her. Her heart jumped. She turned. Luca stood at the doorway, rain dripping from his coat. She should have screamed, run, called her guards. Instead, she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." He stepped forward, hands raised. "Neither should you." The distance between them was a heartbeat and a history of violence. Lightning flashed through the broken, stained glass, painting his face in shards of crimson and gold. "I came to make sure you were safe," he said. "Safe from what? You?" A corner of his mouth lifted. "From what's coming." He told her about whispers in his father's camp, plans for retaliation, old grudges reignited. Someone wanted the truce broken, and both patriarchs were too proud to stop it. She should have walked away. Instead, she asked the question that changed everything. "What if we stop it?" They met again, once then twice, always in shadows. Each meeting felt like stepping closer to a fire she couldn't resist. He was supposed to be her enemy, yet with him she felt something she'd never known in her father's marble fortress: freedom. He'd laugh in that quiet, rough way that made her forget the world outside the alley. She'd tease him about the scar he refused to explain. And when he looked at her, really looked, she forgot what family even meant. But every stolen hour carried a price. One night, as they slipped through the back streets, a car screeched nearby. Luca pulled her into an alley, pressing her against the wall just as headlights sliced through the dark. Moretti soldiers, her father's men. She froze, breath shallow, feeling the heat of Luca's body shielding hers. He whispered, "Stay still." The car slowed, then rolled on. When the danger passed, she realized his hand was still on her waist. Neither moved. The city noise faded to nothing. Her pulse raced, and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes, not of the guns but of her, of what this meant. He stepped back. This is how wars start. Her voice trembled, or how they end. Later that night, the Moretti mansion glowed with celebration. Her father's birthday, a parade of suits and laughter too loud to be sincere. Isabella smiled through it all, wine glass in hand, pretending she didn't feel the ghost of Luca's touch. Across the room, Marco clinked glasses with their father. To the Morettis, may our enemies drown in their own blood. The toast drew thunderous cheers. Isabella raised her glass but couldn't drink. Every cheer felt like a countdown. In a corner, her father's advisor leaned in, whispering something that made the old man's expression darken. She caught only fragments. Giordano movement, docks tonight. Her stomach turned cold. If her father struck first, the fragile piece would shatter. And Luca? She set her glass down, slipping away unnoticed into the rain-soaked night. That was how it always began. One reckless choice, one secret meeting, one heartbeat away from disaster. And tonight, Isabella Moretti was about to make all three. The war didn't end at the docks. It only moved into the streets. For weeks, the city burned in fragments. Sirens cut through the night like cries from ghosts. The Giordanos and the Morettis hunted each other through alleyways and backroom deals, spilling blood like it was currency. And through it all, Isabella hid one secret that could destroy them both. She found out 2 weeks after the bridge, the morning she woke dizzy, trembling, her hands pressed against her stomach as though she could silence the truth inside. She tried to deny it, blame the stress, the sleepless nights, but when the test turned positive, the world stopped moving. Her first thought wasn't fear. It was asterisk Luca, asterisk. Then came the fear. She sat on the edge of her bed, the morning light spilling through the curtains like shards of glass. Her reflection in the mirror looked pale and fragile, a stranger staring back. Behind the closed doors of the Moretti estate, war was being planned, alliances negotiated, enemies marked for death. But Isabella's war was quiet, internal, growing. That afternoon, she found her brother Marco in the study, shouting into the phone. His voice was sharp, commanding, the tone of a man molded by their father's world. "The Giordanos think they can bleed us dry," he hissed. "Then we'll cut their supply lines, burn their shipments before they reach the docks. You tell Don Vincenzo we're done talking." When he hung up, Isabella stepped in quietly. "Marco, please, enough blood." He turned, eyes dark and hollow. "You think I want this? They killed our men, they tried to kill father." "But what if it wasn't them?" she pressed. "What if someone wants both families to fall?" He froze. "Where did you hear that?" She swallowed. "I just think someone playing both sides." Marco studied her, suspicion glinting behind his eyes, but before he could speak, a servant entered, whispering something urgent about a meeting. He brushed past Isabella. "Stay out of this, Bella," he said. "This isn't your fight." But it was, more than he could ever know. That night, Isabella went to him. The city's underbelly stretched before her, neon lights flickering over rain-slicked streets, the scent of gasoline and saltwater in the air. Luca waited in an abandoned chapel at the edge of Giordano territory. The pews were broken, the candles long melted to their wicks, but when he turned toward her, the world felt whole again. "You came," he said softly. "Of course I did." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was thick, heavy with the memory of the photograph, the one that had already begun to circulate through both families. "I heard your father's orders," he said. "He wants me dead. And mine wants you erased from the city." Luca's jaw tightened. "Then maybe he'll get his wish. My brother been feeding him information. He's the one who set up the docks, pitting us against each other." Her heart sank. "Matteo." He nodded. He wants to take control. If our fathers fall, he inherits everything. She stepped closer. Then we can't let him win. Luca reached for her hand, but she stopped him, tears welling in her eyes. There's something else, she whispered. Something you need to know. Her voice broke. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air, fragile as glass. Luca didn't speak, didn't breathe. The storm outside pressed against the chapel walls like a living thing. Then he reached for her, not out of shock or anger, but with a tenderness that nearly shattered her. You're sure? She nodded. 2 weeks. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. Then this war ends now, for them, for us. She shook her head. You can't just stop it, not with words. I don't need words, he said, eyes burning. I need leverage. The next morning, Luca walked into his father's office, the air thick with cigar smoke and betrayal. Don Giordano sat behind a massive oak desk, staring at maps of the city. Father, Luca began, the docks were a setup. Matteo's been feeding the Mortys lies. The old man looked up, unimpressed. You have proof. Enough, Luca said. Enough to stop this before it destroys everything. But Matteo stepped from the shadows, smirking. You're lying, brother. You've always envied me, and now you're protecting a Morty. The Don's expression darkened. What does he mean? Luca didn't flinch. It means I love her, and she's carrying my child. The room went still. Then the Don slammed his hand on the table. You've dishonored this family. Matteo grinned. I told you, father, he's weak. Luca's temper snapped. You're the traitor, Matteo. You're the one who sold us out. Before his father could respond, guards stormed in Matteo's men, not the Don. Luca fought back, throwing punches, the room erupting into chaos. His father shouted for order, but it was too late. Matteo's coup had begun. By the time Luca escaped, blood ran down his temple. His father's house was burning, and Matteo's men were everywhere. He disappeared into the night, hunted, bruised, and outnumbered. Back at the Morty mansion, Isabella could feel the shift before she even heard the news. The phone calls stopped. The guards doubled. Her father's tone became sharp, suspicious. That evening, she overheard her father and Marco speaking in hushed voices. We have proof, her father said. Giordano's boy was at the docks, and Isabella, she's been sneaking out at night. Marco's voice was tight with disbelief. You think she's involved? I think, her father said coldly, she's the reason we're losing control. Isabella's breath caught. Her secret wasn't secret anymore. That night, she ran again, this time not for love, but survival. Luca met her at the train yard, bruised and desperate. They fell into each other's arms, both shaking. They know, she whispered. He nodded. So does Matteo. He's declared war not just on your family, but on me. We can still leave, she said. Tonight, just go. But he hesitated, staring toward the horizon where the city lights burned red. If I run, he wins. If I stay, you die. She gripped his face, voice breaking. Then we fight together for the child, for us, whatever it takes. He kissed her, one last time like a promise sealed in blood. Then we end this tomorrow. But fate didn't wait for tomorrow. By dawn, the Morty estate was surrounded. Marco burst into Isabella's room, his face pale. Bella, they're here. Giordano's men, they're storming the gates. She grabbed her coat, her heart pounding. It's not Luca, it's Matteo. You have to believe me. But Marco didn't listen. Stay inside. Gunfire echoed outside. Windows shattered. Smoke filled the halls. Isabella ran through the chaos, calling Luca's name. When she reached the courtyard, he was there fighting through the fire, blood staining his sleeve. Their eyes met through the smoke. And then a shot. She screamed his name as he fell. When the smoke cleared, the mansion was in ruins. The bodies of both families lay scattered across the courtyard. Matteo was gone, vanished into the night with his men. Luca lay unconscious, his pulse faint but steady. Isabella knelt beside him, tears streaking her face, her hands pressed against the blood on his chest. Stay with me, she whispered. Please stay. He stirred weakly, his voice barely audible. You have to run." "I'm not leaving you," she said, shaking her head. "Not now, not ever." Sirens wailed in the distance. The police were coming. She leaned over him, whispering the truth she had hidden from everyone. "You're going to be a father, Luca. You have to live, for them." His eyes fluttered open enough for one last look. "Then go," he breathed. "Save our future." And she did, because love, even when drenched in blood, still knows how to survive. As she disappeared into the smoke, carrying the weight of 2 empires and 1 unborn life, the city began to crumble behind her. And in that ruin, something new was being born, not peace, not yet, but the first quiet heartbeat of hope. The highway bled into a blur of rain and light. Luca drove like a man possessed, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping Isabella's trembling fingers. The 2 black cars behind them didn't relent. They were wolves, engines howling through the night. "Luca, we can't outrun them forever," she cried. He glanced at her, eyes fierce. "Then we don't, we end it." He turned sharply down a deserted side road that cut into the old industrial district, a graveyard of abandoned factories and forgotten wars. Smoke still lingered from the docks weeks ago, and the sky hung low and heavy, thick with tension. He killed the headlights and parked behind a crumbling wall. The roar of the pursuing engines grew closer, echoing like thunder. "Stay here," he said. "Luca." He kissed her forehead, then pressed a gun into her hand. "If anything happens, you run. You protect our child." Her voice broke. "Please don't." He smiled, a sad, broken thing. "It's all right. Some wars you can't run from." The cars stopped. Doors slammed. Voices shouted in the dark. Luca stepped into the open. "Matteo," he called out. From the shadows, his brother emerged, dressed in black, smirking like the devil himself. "Little brother, you should have stayed gone." Luca raised his weapon. "You set us up. You turned father against me." Matteo shrugged. Someone had to finish what he couldn't. Power doesn't wait for love stories. The gunfight erupted, deafening. Sparks flew off rusted metal, the smell of gunpowder filling the air. Luca moved with purpose, protecting, not killing for power but for love. Isabella stayed low, clutching her stomach, whispering a silent prayer. When it was over, Luca and Matteo stood face to face, guns raised. "Put it down," Luca said. "Why?" Matteo's grin was wild. "You think you deserve a happy ending." "I don't deserve it," Luca said, "but she does." Matteo fired first. The bullet hit Luca's arm, and before Matteo could fire again, a shot rang out from behind. Don Giordano stood there, his own gun smoking. "Enough," the old man said. "I've buried 1 son already. I won't bury another." Matteo stared at him, shock freezing his face before collapsing. Don Giordano looked at Luca, at the blood, the defiance, and the love that had once seemed like betrayal. "She's pregnant," Luca said quietly. "You're going to be a grandfather." The Don's breath caught. For the first time in decades, his eyes softened. "Go, take her far from here, start again." Luca hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll clean up this mess," the Don said. "End the war for the child." Luca nodded once. "Thank you." He returned to the car. Isabella clung to him, relief breaking through tears. "You're alive," she whispered. "Because of you," he said. "Always because of you." They drove until the city was nothing but a memory, until all that was left was ocean and open sky. Months later, in a quiet coastal villa, Isabella gave birth to a baby boy. Luca held him, voice trembling. "Leo Giordano," he whispered. "A new name for a new world." Years passed. The war faded into legend. 2 families rebuilt what love had nearly destroyed. And on warm nights, as waves kissed the shore, Luca and Isabella sat together, their son asleep between them, the stars reflected in his dark eyes. For the first time, peace didn't feel like a lie.